Good evening, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mohammed Ayub. I chair the Traffic Management Subcommittee. I would like to welcome you all to tonight's meeting, which we will be using equipment connecting to the chamber into Microsoft Teams. There is a live stream available through the Teams, and a recording of this meeting will be uploaded at the council website afterwards. Thank you. And also, this is the first meeting, and Happy New Year to everyone. The first item we have on the declaration of interest. The councillors, do we have any? None. I, as a chair, have on item 7, which is the private hire bus lane. When we get to that item, I'll be leaving the chair and I'll ask my colleague, who's a vice chair, Councillor Renzi, vice chair of traffic management. He'll be stepping in for that item. Thank you. Item 2 is the minute of the meeting can I confirm these are the true meetings minute on the 13th of November 2023? Do councillors agree? Is that correct? Agenda item 3 is questions from member of the public and also councillors. We have none, no questions either. Item 4 is petitions. We have no petitions. And then we'll move on to item 5, which is petition response to Hemdin House School request for speeding calming measures. Can I ask James Penman to introduce this?
Thank you, Chair. So this report follows the petition and presentation of the petition we had to the last subcommittee meeting, and confirms the request for speed calming outside Hemdin House School. So makes a recommendation that that request be made onto the requests for traffic management measures report, which is reported here twice annually. The next one's due in March, our next meeting, and gets added to that list for future funding. Thank you.
Councillor Renzi.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank once again the staff and the children of Hemdin House School for engaging with us before last traffic management subcommittee meeting, and since then. It was really heartwarming for everyone last time seeing your kids coming here. It's nice to see some real life coming into this room every now and again. And I also want to acknowledge and thank you for the continued pressure on this item, because obviously approving these to go on a list doesn't provide any value yet to our children and our residents. So it's only the start of a, not sure if, you know, collaboration, but for us, search for funding and work on it. And just wanted to confirm that we are looking forward to keep working on it. I know you have ideas, and I'm aware I haven't replied to your last email, sorry. But we will continue working together. So it's not the end of the story. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. So can we, the subcommittee, note the content of the report in paragraph 1, 2, and 3, and 4? Do we agree? The committee agrees? Yeah. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item, agenda item 6, which is on page 17 of your papers, which is Wensley Road introduction of waiting and loading restrictions, speed calming question. Can I ask Darren Cook to give a briefing update?
Thank you, Chair. This report seeks approval from the subcommittee to carry out a statutory consultation on the introduction of waiting and loading restrictions around the site to aid pedestrian and vehicle movements, and notice processes to account for relocated speed humps and the introduction of a one-way road through the development. These proposals are linked to a planning application that was granted on the 16th of December 2020, the development of 46 new units. The relevant planning application reference is 200122, and the development is currently under construction and is due for completion sometime 2024. Proposals subject to this report consist of the introduction of numerous changes surrounding the site, and these have been explained within the report from paragraphs 3.2, which have been broken down into smaller sub-areas for ease of reference. Funding for the consultation and notice periods processes will be paid for by the development, and the implementation for the restrictions and the works will be undertaken by necessary licenses and agreement by the applicant. We're asking the committee to permit officers to carry out the statutory consultation and notice processes. We need to advertise the alterations as detailed in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Councillor Gitting.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Darren, for your opening remarks. I mean, obviously, as Coley Ward councillors, I'm the Coley Ward rep on this panel. We welcome this development, and we welcome it not least because it's a sign that we are moving towards the end, certainly the first stage of the development in Wednesday Road, which is the building of 46 council homes, and also some associated improvements to the whole high-rise area, including new playgrounds and other amenities for residents, which I have to say, you know, has not been an easy road. If I can use that analogy. We faced quite a lot of opposition locally, not necessarily from council residents, but from others. Some of it was quite unfriendly. And we faced opposition at the planning stage, actually, from representatives of the parties opposite. But I'm proud to say that myself and Councillor Emberson and Terry have stuck to our guns on this, and we work with council officers to arrive at what I believe is a really good thing for Coley and the construction of these council houses and these other extra facilities. But of course, it hasn't been easy. But the end is in sight. Certainly the first phase, which is the building of the properties. So I overall welcome, obviously, these tidying up measures. I mean, I draw attention, you know, to 3.4. We're going to put in a pedestrian crossing across Wednesday Road, which will enable residents to access the excellent new facilities we've got at Courage Park. We've always encouraged people to use that park. It's a great park. It's very close to the high roads. It's great for the residents. So that's going to make it safer to cross that road. Also, the temporary bus stops that have been in place. We've had a lot of discussions around when we place temporary bus stops, but now they're going to become permanent, proper bus cages, proper covering. That's in this plan. 3.1 for the road, which is now running through the site. It's got a slight kink in it. Decided to make that one way. I think that's on safety and turning grounds. I think that's a good decision. It will mean actually that it will ease the congestion or ease the traffic flow on the loop, the famous Wednesday Road loop, where we've had a lot of problems with buses being held up, cars parked on either side, some of them unfortunately illegally. So it's one-way system that's going on the road. That's going to help in that. So that's to be welcomed. And then obviously we've got some of the work around the junctions where we're putting in some yellow lines, which will help with safety for obvious reasons. We're turning out of junctions. We don't want cars parked higgledy-piggledy on those junctions. And it does mean, I think, a small loss of parking spaces for some of the residents opposite one of those junctions. But I think that's really ameliorated by the new parking arrangements we've got for the development, which actually does increase the parking and sorts some of that out, and also some of the, at the moment, illegal parking on on the side on the grass verges and things like that, because at the moment it has been difficult, residents, and we do understand that. So I welcome this, and you know, thanks very much to the officers for working with us on that, and hopefully this will be successfully implemented over the next coming months.
Thank you, Councillor Keating. I don't see any more indications, so I move forward to the recommended action. Does the subcommittee note the report and also recommended action from point 2 to point 6? Do we agree with it? Go ahead. Yeah, thank you. Next bit is the item 7, probably a bus lane, which I declared interest in. So I'll ask my colleagues, Councillor Lorenzi, to take the chair, and I will return.
Thank you, Chair. So following the petition that we had some time ago for requesting Reading Borough Council licence private hire vehicles to be able to use the outbound Kings Road bus lane, we've undertaken an informal consultation throughout the month of November on that proposed change. So to be specific, the consultation was on a potential proposal that did not change the current bus, motorcycle or bicycle access, but A, would remove non-Reading Borough Council licensed Hackney carriages, and 2, would allow Reading Borough Council licensed private hires to use that lane. As you can see in the report, we've had over 1,200 responses, and that feedback is in the report. We're asking today for consideration by the subcommittee of how you would wish to move forward, what next step you'd like to choose. We've given some options for you in item 3.16, and we've outlined what the milestones would be for those. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. Now, I have 3 members of the public who asked to speak. Now, our constitution says that there is a total of 5 minutes, which will make 1 minute and 40 seconds each. I personally think is not enough to even introduce oneself with. So I have let members know that they are allowed to speak for 3 minutes, which is the double of the time normally allowed. The first person I have is Kamran Sadiq for Reading Private Hire Association. If you would like to sit at the table, we will be doing the annoying thing of timing you, so please keep track of the time. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Further regarding to our petition, which we put through last year and earlier on this year regarding the access for the outbound Kings Road bus lane. Myself personally, obviously, I've been going down onto the Kings Road bus lane. I've been standing on one side and I've been making lots of videos during peak hours of the Kings Road outbound bus lane. Peak hours in the morning, in the afternoons, to see, you know, how the traffic is flowing, how the bus lane is going as well. In that is clearly showing the bus lane is flowing very freely, very frequently as well. The issue we have here is that, like I was addressing in our last meeting, Mr. Penman, was that the inbound bus lane, it was given to us over 11 years ago. It's been free, going absolutely fine. With the authorised vehicles only signs put up 3 years ago, that's controlled traffic really well. Great credit to the buses. They're doing absolutely fantastic. We've never stepped in their way. We don't even intend to. We want that flow to continue. We support. When we started this association, we said we wanted to work with licensing with transport as an organisation. Can't speak about the organisations of the private from the past. That wasn't us. This is mine. We want to work on the straight, on the right with everybody. So coming on to the outbound bus lane, this is exactly what we were trying to say, that if we were to stop, there's at the moment, you've got, like I said, the South Oxfordshire's Hackney carriages, you've got the West Berkshires, you've got the Wokingham boroughs, you also now got the Uber Fareham drivers, New Forest. I mean, myself and Councillor John Ennis went down to the Kings Road. We stood there one Monday morning from 7:45 till 9:15 in the morning. And there was maximum, I think, about 6 or 7 buses that went. That's all there was. But on the contrary, there was about 9 out-of-town vehicles using that bus lane. And at the same time, we had Reading private hire drivers who were stuck on the Kings Road. There was 3 who had SEN children carrying in their vehicles stuck in the bus on the outbound, whilst these vehicles were using those bus lanes at the end of the day. In the last 10 years, we can prove there's not been one single accident created by Reading private hire drivers on the Kings Road. The record speaks for itself. You know, public safety is our #1 at the end of the day. So when we are asking for access to use, if we take out these 4 or 5 boroughs who are using, we are paying services to Reading Borough Council, but we are being deprived of the services which other, drivers are using from other boroughs. We've had last 4 weeks, we've had 13 drivers leave the Reading private hire trade, and they've gone and got vehicles, their licenses outside of Reading. They're paying these fees to other councils, and they're coming and using these services at the end of the day. Putting 13 drivers together gives a figure of about 10.5k per year, which is going out of Reading Borough Council's pockets to other licensing authorities, and they're coming back to use the services here. How is that fair on our drivers?
Thank you very much. Thank you. The second person I have listed to talk is Mr. Asif Rashid of Reading Taxi Association. Same rules apply.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Hi, most of you know me, but some of you may not. I'm the chair of the Reading Taxi Association, Hackney Carriage. We've been going over this for many years now. And to be honest with you, I can see where they're coming from, particularly with the outer borough carriages. I think really they need to be, and I've said this for a long time, they need to be removed from our bus lanes, because if you want to go and work for license somewhere else, go and work in that borough. Don't come and work in Reading. So we agree with that. But obviously, we have major concerns with the proposal as well, and that being in terms of enforcement. Although the currently out of borough Hackney carriages, they use the bus lanes, they're easily identifiable as Hackney carriages. So they will have a roof sign, they'll have a plate, just like the private hire. But one of the issues we have is that not all private hire licensed by Reading Borough Council have plates or have roof signs on them. They're executive vehicles, so they'll be no different to a normal car. So the potential is there that if you're in that bus lane, you're an executive, legally you can use that bus lane. But Joe Bloggs sitting in that traffic will see that Mercedes and say, well, I've got the same car, I can use it. So the potential is there. And although they've used the inbound King Lane bus lane, but in the past, when Councillor Page was chair, lead for transport, made it plainly clear. To this date, the inbound Kings Road bus lane is still being abused by those that should not be in it. Why? Because the camera's at the beginning of it and they're coming in from Rupert Street or other roads and they're coming in. So it's not that we're against this, but from day one, there needs to be enforcement. There needs to be make sure that, the buses don't get impacted by this. We don't get impacted by this. Private hires have set fares. We go on the meter. The longer we're delayed, the higher the fare the customer paying. We're already suffering. We've had Garage Street closed for the best part of almost 2 months. We've lost many customers there. And, with the fares going up, etc., we can't afford to be losing any more. So I think that obviously you've got the safety as well. I've looked at the responses. There's 1,200 and something. Almost half of those are repetitive. Almost half. And I've been through them and it's about 550 people more or less saying 5 different things, but it's all the same thing. Yes, yes, yes. So it looks like somebody just sat there. They've got nothing better to do. So and in regards to the public, yes, they're saying allow them in, but I will say this. The vast majority of public, 95% plus, don't know the difference between a Hackney carriage and a private hire. They see it as a taxi and that's it. There is a huge difference.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
I'm aware of a third person, Mr. Peter Seymour of Reading Motorcycle Action Group. 3 minutes as everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We'll get that. Well, in 3 minutes, it's difficult to cover it all, but I sent you all a mail because there's a lot of issues involved in this, but the main one is one of safety. You have all signed on to the Council's principles of people first, and this is a people first issue. When I opened up the crash map data for issues on that road, I was shocked. I didn't know it was as bad as that. It's a known black spot. An awful lot of those are young people coming in and out of the college. I've looked, and you can look on Google Earth at the street view from the road, and there's loads of obstructions in the way. There's signs in the wrong place. And I think that junction itself, and I'm going to call it a junction because it is so busy, needs to be upgraded. Irrespective of this particular motion, I think that's one that the officers should look at. I've made some suggestions on that one. It's a rising tide of accidents. I take the private hires point, it's not them, but there is no differentiation between their vehicles and anybody else, and it will cause problems. I have no doubt about that, that already we have people sideswiping cyclists and motorcyclists because they're turning left because they don't even look in that lane. And they use that lane because they're frustrated with the traffic. If they see lots more cars going down without plates, and some of them are plates, but it's at the back, it looks like an ordinary car. We're talking about an increase of over 4 times the licensed vehicles that are going to be allowed to go over there. 845 is it extra? It's a huge number. Statistically, even if we multiply the number of accidents by the number of vehicles, we're looking at a disaster zone. You cannot do that. It really is just not safe. And that's just with the junction as it is. And please bear in mind that these are predominantly young people. They're young. They don't have as much caution as we do when we're crossing the road. And there are an awful lot of motorcycles, I say motorcycles and scooters that use that college. It surprised me how many. And because whenever I go in there, I don't see very many parked up. But it turns out that they're different bikes on every single day. And AM and PM, it's a different lot because they have half days. And then they've got to get to their place of work, wherever they are, be it on sites or canteens somewhere, and they can't wait for a bus. And these are young people. They've had 3 hours formal training on the road with a CBT, and then they're let loose. They're a high risk. And I feel that the council, morally, if not legally, have a higher duty of care to consider those people first. I do take the point about other vehicles being allowed in that bus lane. I think that should stop, because if those ones are the people who are not familiar necessarily with that junction and those roads, and further down at Cemetery Junction, there's been a lot of crossing accidents there, then they're the ones that are going to be the greatest risk to our residents.
Thank you very much, Mr. Seymour. Thank you. I believe there is no one else from the public intending to speak. Therefore, I'll pass it to Councillor Ennis. Thank you.
Thanks ever so much. Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the three speakers who have set the scene. And I really appreciate Cameron, Asif and Peter. And there's two issues there, safety and enforcement, which we need to reflect on and look at going forward. Oh, okay, sorry about that. Yep. I'm a bit of a shorty, so I'll go as close as I can.
As Mr. Seymour reminded us, we are not young. So
No.
Closer to the microphone.
No. Still not great at crossing the road, though, to be honest with you, so I'll take that on board. What I want to do is move a motion, the way forward for this procedure, because it's an open-ended report. It's an open-ended report. There's no there's good information. It's been, thank the officers, James and the officers for placing this. And therefore, then we have a decision to make, and I want to move the motion as the lead councillor for climate strategy and transport. I want to move it at 3.16, page 40, and I want it at numbers. I'm moving that we agree C, which is agree to pursue a proposed change of restriction to exclude non-Reading Borough Council licensed Hackney carriage vehicles and to permit the use by Reading Borough Council licensed private hire vehicles. And this was informally consulted proposal and process outlined in section 3.14. And I want to go to 3.14, 39, because this is important. 3.14, to pursue the requested alteration of access along the Kings Road outward bound, we would require the following. And it's identify funding, because it's not coming from grant, it's not coming from national government, it will come from our funding. To have a statutory consultation, so it's a creation, advertisement, proposed new traffic regulation order. Have an implementation decision, which I take it is consideration to come back, I would say, to the next traffic management subcommittee in March. The signing review in connection of signing specific specifications for the required changes along the route. This is expected to be 8 regulatory blue-backed signs and 3 large white-backed directional signs that contain elements relating to the access restrictions. I know you can read this, but I'm going to read it out. Making the order, seal and advertise the made traffic regulation order, and F, implementation of the scheme, change the signing on street, update exemptions on the enforcement camera software, which we take on board Asif's analysis of the inward bound enforcement. That is what I'm proposing, and I'm looking for a seconder. And the reasons why I'm asking for that to be, to move that motion, is that this is a historic situation. For 10 years now, private hire have been able to use the inward bound Kings Road with no problems, with no major problems. You've heard from Cameron, as ever, an excellent speech. Again, excellent contribution from Cameron, who is a credit to the Private Hire Association, who's really done some really good work. And that's the same with Asif in the RTA, is that they've done some great work, well representing their members to support them and to advocate for their drivers. He's made the point about the safety aspects, and that's why tonight, and I know others may speak on it, is that we cannot talk about safety and private hire. That is unfair. The record is naught. He's made that point on several occasions, and long may that be. because that's so important. You know, so no problems. So the outward bound, there's been a petition. I take it the petition was 2022 to an agreement to come to traffic management September. It came later, but it's came. We've had an informal consultation, which we agreed. Yes, 1200 raw. Yes, it's raw, but I think it's clear data. And if you scratch down on that consultation, you'll find real people on there. And how many times I've sat here on many occasions going, you know, there's one I can think about in the Mount, and I think there's about 4 houses and there's about 1200 people interested. So we don't want to be too hit up on a consultation where there are real people, albeit many of them are private hire. They have every right to be consulted and to take place in the consultation. They're organised. It's an association. Associations organise. Get over it. And I take my hat off to it. I can get the point why people are saying it's a weighted consultation, but they took the effort. And if you went through that consultation, which I have, there are real people on it. I appreciate the motorcycle issue about it, and appreciate the bus company as well. I've written, appreciate that. But on the whole, in my view, we need to support our Reading private hire drivers. We need to support our Reading taxi drivers as well together. And they're an important sector of transport. You've heard they send, they transport children, send children to there. And we need to talk about the out of Reading situation, because I observed, I went down, I was invited by the Private Hire Association. I went down and I observed and I noted Fareham, New Forest, South Oxfordshire. I noted some of them drivers live in Reading and are being registered outside. And that's something we have to deal with. We have to deal with that. And I'm hopeful that this and other stuff that's coming on later on will do that. I went around this morning and noted New Forest plates in the morning. I noted these plates going as taxis. They're going as taxis, almost like private hire vehicles, as taxis using bus lanes when Reading private hire taking Reading children to schools. I found like I'm a bit NIMBY here, but I'm not apologising for it. We've got to support our Reading drivers, and we've got to end this out of town, out of Reading vehicles situation. And I'm hoping this will be the case. Hence, that's why I'm moving 3.6C in with regards to 3.14. We go to a statutory consultation. I thank the work that's been put in on this, and I think we need to. I think it's clear. We need to start doing it. We need to start supporting private hire on this. It's a standalone. It's a standalone decision on Kings Road, outward bound, the same as Kings Road inward bound. So that's my move. I move, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
I second and reserve, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Page. So I've got Councillor Cross, Councillor White, Councillor Moore to talk. Before letting Councillor Cross talk, just wanted to summarize. So we've got a motion on the floor to approve a statutory consultation which involved 316C as per the report you have been given. So agree to pursue a proposed change of restriction to exclude non-RBC licensed ACNI vehicles and to permit use by RBC licensed private hire vehicles. Councillor White, Councillor Cross.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, you're always in my mind, Councillor White, sorry.
Thank you. It's been touched upon in the debate, the subject of safety on Kings Road, which is an area of concern for East Reading residents. There was no suggestion in the report that private hire drivers had contributed to any safety issues, but there's the broader question about the volume and speed of traffic on this road. Obviously, we're separating that from the issue of the usage restrictions in the bus lane here. However, my question to officers and the lead member is, when will a piece of work be undertaken to assess the broader picture of safety issues on Kings Road, and when can we expect it to come back to this committee?
Thank you, Councillor Cross. Apologies again, the only and real Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll be intrigued to hear the answer to that question because I asked something similar last time. Thanks to Cameron, Asif, Peter, all of the speakers in the public gallery, you all made some really good points. Green councillors support moving to a statutory consultation on the option which Councillor Ennis outlined. We think that's a good way forward. The informal consultation responses were overwhelmingly in support of this. As I've said previously, I think it's ridiculous that Reading licensed private hire drivers can use one of the Kings Road bus lanes but not the other. It also seems unfair that out of town Hackney drivers can use the outbound lane, but Reading private hire drivers can't. We share the road safety concerns, which have been touched on by a few people and are touched on in the report, not linked to private hire drivers using the bus lanes, but generally on Kings Road. And as we raised at the last meeting, we think a councillor working group should be set up to look at this. And I'd repeat that for Councillor Ennis's benefit again for when he responds later. With the Hackney drivers from other authorities, it would be good to have some more concrete numbers about the number of them that are currently using the Kings Road outbound bus lane and how many Reading private hire drivers we think would be using it afterwards. Obviously, the out of borough Hackney would not be using it anymore, and the Reading licence private hire would be using it. My guess is that the numbers would be similar, and so we wouldn't see an increase in the number of the amount of traffic in that bus lane, but it would be good to get a concrete number. So I don't know if anyone has done a count on the number of private hire drivers currently using the inbound bus lane, but that might give us a number to compare to a survey of the number of out of borough Hackney drivers that are currently using the outbound bus lane. So I'd be interested in if an officer could do that bit of work and we could get that number coming back to the meeting to confirm that there's not going to be much of a change. Greens support the private hire drivers as part of our public transport system, and we support the statutory consultation.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Moore, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to all three speakers this evening. All were very welcome contributions and allow a more well-rounded discussion between us this evening. I think there's almost certainly merit in reviewing Kings Road in general for safety, as has been discussed, for all road users, but I don't think that's related to private hire or Hackney carriages, nor is it really within the context of this agenda item, but I would like that to be taken up, as both Councillor Cross and Councillor White have mentioned. I absolutely agree with the point that non-Reading Borough Council registered Hackney carriages should be excluded from this lane, regardless of whether we allow Reading Borough Council private hire vehicles to use it or not. Later on this evening, we will discuss potentially introducing new or changed bus lanes to Reading. So the irony is not lost on me that in this agenda item, we have a letter of strong opposition from Reading buses about how this proposed change will impact bus traffic flow. Now, there are arguments for and against how any such change would impact car or bus traffic flow. But I think broadly, I agree and think excluding non-RBC Hackney carriages will certainly contribute positively towards traffic flow. And I look forward to what other colleagues have to say about how I may well vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Hacker.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add my support to the proposal by Councillor Ennis. I've been on this committee far longer than I wish to remember, coming up 14 years as a councillor, and I've spoken to many of you about this issue. And I think it's a great way forward. I really do. So I look forward to seeing it, and it's something that's new to me, but the world of parents of children with special educational needs and people with disabilities, unfortunately I now class myself as one of those people, opened my eyes when I was speaking to friends with these challenges about how a private hire vehicle to them is public transport. They can't get a bus. They can't drive themselves, certainly can't ride a bicycle. And so they need to be able to get from A to B efficiently and quickly for appointments. So I'm looking forward to the next stages of this, and I thank the opposition, I won't say that, you're still my friends, but the people opposite for proposing this motion today. I hope to join you again one day, but we'll see.
Thank you, Councillor Harker. Councillor Singh, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I would definitely like to support this and take it forward. The reasoning behind who uses the private hire taxis is the people who wants to go to hospitals, the students, the SEND schools, airport. I know one of my neighbors who wanted to go to airport but got stuck and couldn't use the bus lane for 45 minutes, and there was only three buses were using that bus lane. So, and in terms of this safety, the track record speaks for itself. We have not seen any data where the private hire taxis were involved in accidents or causing any public safety side of things. So definitely like to support this and take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Singh. Councillor Page.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Having been involved with the bus lane issue and discussions some years ago with private hire, I welcome the proposal to go to statutory consultation. I think the process that we've gone through so far vindicates the use of this authority of informal consultations, because it does enable issues to be brought out that can then be further studied and refined as we take this forward. The statutory consultation is only for 3 weeks. That's the legal period. Whether we can get it back to March, Councillor Ennis, I'm not too sure, but we can hear from Mr. Penman about the timetable, obviously, when we have agreed this. I think the issue that's been raised about road safety, I love him dearly, but Peter, I think, has gone a bit off, conflated some issues here, and other colleagues, particularly Councillor Moore, have rightly said that the issue of road safety should not be conflated with whether we allow private hire vehicles into this stretch of King's Road. There is a serious road safety issue, and one of the things that I did a few years ago was to ask to see in great detail an analysis involving also police reports of accidents along the King's Road. And one of the problems that officers have is that there is no consistency. It's not like an accident black spot. You can identify the college. In fact, the college entrance hasn't produced any of the serious accidents. There have been issues. The fatalities, one of them more recently, was a car, I think it was stolen, driving at speed down the bus lane. It shouldn't have been there, and there was a fatal accident. Now, that's one extreme. There have been other accidents along King's Road, but it's quite clear from an analysis of those accidents that there is no one single factor. And indeed, the police have a responsibility after serious accidents to make recommendations to us. And we've seen some of the reports at this traffic management subcommittee over the years. The key issue, the key problem along there is, of course, speeding at times of low traffic flow. And the times when there is less traffic along King's Road is now greater post-pandemic than before. And that reflects the spread now of working practices. The peaks have spread more, and as a result, we see speeding along the King's Road. And that brings us back to an age-old cry from us to have speed enforcement powers. The police don't enforce speeding in Reading, and yet they won't support us being given that right. And I would say to Councillor Ennis, don't forget that campaign, because if we had the power to enforce speeding through cameras and other technology, we could contribute far more to a safer King's Road than virtually anything else. And that applies to other roads in the borough. So the issue of road safety along here is important, but there is no single solution, I would suggest, to the problem other than us getting those speed enforcement powers. enforcement on the use of the bus lane is a very valid and somewhat topical issue, because members of the RTA and private hire think it mainly affected Hackney carriages. Of course, there was a problem recently with PCNs being issued to vehicles that were entitled to use the inbound lane and some others. So I think we as members need to satisfy ourselves that if we do progress ultimately to allowing private hire vehicles into the outbound bus lane, and also restricting the use to only Reading Borough Hackney carriage, that we have a robust enforcement regime to support it. Because if it isn't robust, then it will rapidly become discredited and abused. And so there's some work for us as members to, and obviously with the officers, to ensure that we can enforce the arrangements. And again, that's something that we can consider over the next few months. But I welcome the cross-party support for this. One final point. As a great fan of, and somebody that's obviously been involved with Reading buses over many decades, I respect the letter that Robert Williams has sent in opposition, but I have to say we are lacking from Reading buses any real tangible evidence about any problems on the inbound lane. They claim that there have been problems. I've yet to see any real evidence of it, and for that reason I believe that extending the facility to private hire vehicles on the outbound lane will not be the problem that they anticipate, but clearly that's something that only time will tell. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Page. So before letting Councillor Ennis wrap up, I wanted to ask James to get back on a few points which were mentioned, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. I've certainly made a lot of notes, and many of those points we'll take away. Just primarily in terms of the March turnaround, obviously we do our very best to do that. It is quite a tight period between this and March's meeting for consultations anyway, and later on we've got the waiting restriction review as well, but we can have a discussion, perhaps prioritise which, and we'll do our utmost to meet the targets that you'd like. Thank you.
Thank you very much. James, Councillor Ennis.
No, thanks for that, James. We'll have another discussion about that. Thank all the councillors for their contributions, really helpful. I kind of missed what Councillor Moore, you're talking about, making sure that we keep, we keep Reading only. That's what your view on that. Yeah, 100%. 100%. That's got to be in. It's achievable. We've had discussions about it. It's achievable, and we need to be doing it on. And you'll see something tonight coming up about keeping non-Reading licensed taxis in, and that's another debate. But tonight in this one, 100% that we need to be supporting those drivers that take the effort, make the effort to license themselves in Reading, to be held to account in Reading, should get the custom of Reading, and not someone who decides they live in Tilehurst, but they're going to license themselves with Fareham, do a bit of Uber or whatever, who we don't want. I'm sorry, unapologetically, we do not want Uber in Reading. And I've got cut price fees with less accountability. There's safety, there's accountability, and there's support, and that's why it makes sense for us to do that. And after we agree that will go forward. As far as the safety is concerned, I mean, we observed it, and Kingsgate Street to me looked a real issue because there's bikes coming along, and then there's vehicles cutting in and then coming through. So we need to have a discussion, about more work, but we do need to have that. We've had this discussion about Kings Road, and we do need to, because it is different. Is differences on the roundabout. There's differences. The college itself, we need to have that discussion and then find a way to go forward of how we can deal with that and address it. I take the point from Councillor Page. Thanks, Councillor Cross, for raising that. But I do take the point of Councillor Page's view on the police, and that's something we need to take that forward. But we will involve local councillors. I think we need to involve local councillors in that discussion around the locality of Kings Road, 100%. I hope that's everything. Thank you very much. So I move the motion. It's been seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Ennis. It looks like we're going to have a very boring vote. Who votes in favour of the motion proposed by Councillor Ennis and seconded by Councillor Page? Sounds unanimous, so the motion is passed. Thank you. I will then go and rescue my colleague and leave. You will. Thank you very much. And leave the chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, councillors. Next item I have is item 8, waiting restriction review on proposal for statutory consultation. Can I ask James Penman to introduce it? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So further report on the 2023 borough-wide waiting restriction review programme. So at September's meeting, we reported the list of requests that we'd received for potential inclusion in the programme, which were agreed for investigation by officers. So we undertook those investigations. We've shared the recommendations with ward councillors and had some really good feedback. So thank you. And we're now reporting those recommendations this evening, and we're seeking agreement to take those to statutory consultation, which we'd aim to undertake next month and bring back to March's meeting. So the appendix is split by ward. There's a few in there with drawings as well, and we're just seeking agreement on whether or not you agree with the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Councillors, subcommittees, as you know, we take this by ward, and I've had already some feedback from councillors as well to the agreement. So the first 3 items I have, which is in Abbey Ward, which is Great Knowledge Street, and Station Road and Weldale Street. So can we agree to the recommendations?
Agreed.
Councillor Page?
I was just going to propose we agree the 2 retain Great Knowledge Street and Station Road and delete Weldale Road, Weldale Street.
Okay, fine. For that, James. Thank you. Next 2 we have is in Battle Ward, which is Loverock Road and Waverley Road, which has Councillor Wendy.
Yeah, happy to go along with the council recommendations on those.
Happy to support those. Can we take those forward? Thank you. Next item we have is in Caversham Ward, which is Star Road and Westfield Road.
Yes, we agreed with officer recommendation on both, so to maintain Star Road and drop Westfield.
Okay, so you know, support for Star Road and remove the Westfield Road. Yep. Thank you, Councillor. Next item we have is 3 in Church Ward, which is Northumberland Avenue. The 2, I think I have support for. And
Chair,
all 3.
I'm happy to support the officer recommendations on all 3, including the one that's represented as Church and Catesgrove. And it also comes up later on as Catesgrove and Church. So I'm happy to support the officer recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor. Committee's agreement with that? Yeah, thank you. Next 3 have is in Coley, which is Berkeley Avenue, Penny Royal Court and Shore Road for waiting restrictions. Councillor Gitting?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Items 11 and 12, we wouldn't recommend for pursuing. Item 13 in Shore Road, we would support.
Thank you, Councillor Gitting. James, you got that one? Next, we have 2 in Emma Green Ward, Hanley Road, and also Jefferson Close and Wordsworth Court. So we have waiting restriction vehicle. Can we agree support for those subcommittee? Yeah. Yeah. I have received from councillors as well, so we'll take that. James, yeah. Received indication from. Next item we have is 4 items in Catesgrove, and the first 2 are in Catesgrove and the other 2 are Catesgrove and Redlands borderline. So I've got the Catesgrove councillor here. Are we in agreement with those restrictions?
Thank you, Chair. Catesgrove councillors would like the Edge Hill Street scheme dropped from the programme because it would, gobble up precious, scarce parking spaces, but they support the other officer recommendations. There's not an officer recommendation on the Edge Hill Street one. It's sort of left open.
Right. So you're happy you drop the Edge Hill Street, remove it, and what? Arkwright Road as well, Bolton?
The other one, other one's officer recommendations.
Yep. Okay, fine. Thank you. Okay, agreement with those, yeah. Right, we move on to the next in Kentwood Ward, Newberry Close. Restriction on double yellow lines. Support for that one?
Yep.
Support. Thank you, Councillor.
Yep, support from Labour as well.
And next 2 items we have is in Norcote Ward, Royal Court and Waverley Road. So we have support for those ones. I've received from the councillors. Committee agreement with that as well. Okay. We'll take that. Next 3 item we have is first two items are in Park and Redlands on the Eastern Avenue. And the third one we have is Liverpool Road. So Councillor Cross.
Thank you, Chair. Just with regards to Eastern Avenue number 1, the original proposal was for this to be removed due to the potential loss of a parking space. I asked for that to be kept in there. There's been some quite serious car crashes along here as of late due to vehicles speeding down there. One resident, Sunila Lobo, was in touch with me with some quite harrowing pictures of a car that ploughed into her front yard and was written off. So I think it should be considered that although some parking space will be lost, this should have a good effect on safety. So I agree with the officer recommendations on both of the Redlands ones here.
Right. Councillor White.
Yeah, on all of the park ones, we support the officer recommendations, and yeah, the one that Councillor Cross just mentioned about, I asked for that to be included a year ago, so it's good to see that it's made it all the way through, and I too asked for it to be retained because of the very serious road accidents that there have been. So really pleased to see that it's still in there and it's progressing, and yeah, fully support that staying in there.
Thank you, Councillor White. Got that. James, yeah, thank you. We'll move on to the next couple. We'll move on to Redlands. We got 3 items in Redlands.
Thank you, Chair. On this one, Craven Road and Donington Road, I'm happy to support the officer recommendations. The subsequent ones have been dealt with under earlier items.
Thank you. Councillor Cross, anybody else? Thank you. The subcommittee agree with those 3 recommendations? Good. James, you can not good. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item is Southgate Lane. This is a junction with Kenilworth Avenue northeast towards the bus lane.
Yeah.
Double yellow line. Councillor Ennis, you're
Definitely
in
in favour.
support for that
Let's
one?
go forward, yeah. Very much so.
Thank you.
Safety matters.
Thank you, James, for that one. Next 2 item I have, which is in Thames Ward. I've had it's on Addison Road and Meadow Road and Elliott Way, which I had councillors as well feedback, so was asked to remove those. Is the committee happy with that?
So I'm aware councillors agreed with officers' recommendations. So if the officer recommendation is to remove them, remove them.
Thank you, Councillor O'Loughlin. Okay with that one. And next item we have is 6 in Tylers, Blunders Road with Gratwick Road, and also Fern Close, Greenacre, Hardwick Road, and 7 Close, Medway, Mayfair for waiting restrictions to be. So does the Tylehurst councillor?
Thank you, Chair. Tilehurst Ward councillors agree with all 6 officer recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Elliott Way.
Apologies, subcommittee members, I was maybe reading a little bit too far ahead. So going back to Thames Ward with Elliott's Way, we suggested that Elliott's Way could be treated, we could proceed with that, i.e. putting the permit parking beyond this point restriction in place, as long as it followed the same timescales as the waiting restriction review. Now, as I know, in previous times where we've done new big resident permit schemes, there's been informal consultation, etc., etc. This was a relatively straightforward scheme. So the recommendation was that we have a drawing there. We could do that with the understanding that it would go straight to statutory consultation, and that if it couldn't, we recommend it be removed. So apologies, I was a bit too quick to suggest that the recommendations were to remove both. They weren't. So it's whether the subcommittee would agree to the officer recommendation is that we can proceed with that if we go straight to statutory consultation. So apologies for clarification.
Can I give an answer by the end of this agenda item, just to get in touch with the work councillors?
Yep.
I'll come back in a minute, no worries.
Yep, sure. Thank you. Right, that concludes that part of the waiting restriction review. We will move on to agenda item 9, which is on your papers, 159. And can I ask James Clements to introduce the item? Thanks. Jim.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to inform the subcommittee of the feedback received from the statutory consultation relating to the 6 proposed bus lanes. This follows the previous informal consultation that was reported to this subcommittee in June last year. In total, 266 responses were received to the statutory consultation. Members are asked to note the full results detailed in paragraph 3.7 to 3.9 of the report. Officers would also like to bring to the attention of the subcommittee that following the assessment of the consultation results, officers are recommending to make an experimental order to permit the use of each of these bus lanes by motorcycles. Funding for these schemes has been secured through the Bus Service Improvement Plan, and subject to your approval of these recommendations, the intention is to complete the majority of these works prior to the funding deadline of March 25. Officers are requesting the subcommittee approve the proposal set out within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Before I take any more questions, I have a speaker on this. Can I call Mr. Peter Seymour?
Thank you, Chair.
Good evening, Mr. Seymour. Could you just introduce your full name and also any groups you're related to? You have 5 minutes on this item.
Peter Seymour, Reading Motorcycle Action Group. First of all, I'd like to just say thank you that you have actually considered and included on an experimental order for access to these bus lanes. This is the first major change to access to bus lanes since the original bus lanes were introduced by Councillor Page, in fact, which was back in 20 plus years ago, I think. A long while. I would say it's long overdue, and our position is that we would like access to all bus lanes. I'm going to ask if you can vary on this one, the experimental traffic order to a permanent order, because I would like to think that we've got a safety record that backs that up. I'd also ask possibly the traffic officers on this one if they've considered how they're going to introduce this. The problem is that these bus lanes, albeit they're going to all come in by end of September 25, how long would an experimental order last for? And are they all going to start and stopping at different times? You know, it's going to become a little bit piecemeal. And one of the big complaints has been about the lack of consistency right the way through. Now, I don't know if you've even considered how long is this experimental traffic order going to last for. I do understand that there's going to be a borough-wide review of access to bus lanes generally. I would like to think that it wouldn't impact on making these particular lanes permanent right from the outset. Any thoughts from the traffic officers on that one? Do you?
Sorry, Mr. Seymour, is that a full?
Well, unless any of the councillors.
I don't want to take any question halfway through. You make your statements, and when you're completed, the councillor will answer your questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair.
Stay in the chair there, Mr. James.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so we can certainly consider whether or not it would be appropriate to make them permanent at the outset. I think that officer recommendation would still be to make them experimental. We would intend to do that for a period of approximately 12 months to assess how the bus lane is being used and the safety aspects of the motorcycles being in that bus lane. I acknowledge the point about all of the bus lanes potentially coming online at different times, and therefore there being an inconsistency in what bus lanes motorcycles can use. You'll be aware that there is already that inconsistency across the borough. So the intention would be, as each of the bus lanes was to come online, the TRO and the experimental order would be made at that point. And as I say, they would each last for up to 12 months. We would be assessing the safety of those throughout that period and coming back to TM Sub with a recommendation either way as to whether or not those orders should be made permanent.
Thank you, James. Councillor Hackey, you indicated.
I'm happy to go after the lead councillor's spoken. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Ennis, yeah.
Introducing the report as lead, thanks ever so much. This is a major report of far-reaching consequences lined with our zest to get to net zero and to enhance buses. This plan is for tomorrow, not for today. So any modelling that would be looked at today would not be relevant after, if we agree to do the recommendations and to agree the report. Because what we're attempting to do, and colleagues would know this after signing the climate emergency in 2019, is to change modal transport, is to change habits, is to encourage more use of buses, cycling and walking, whilst not charging for driving. Drivers will still be able to use lanes. Most of the lanes, the roads in Reading will not have changed and there'll be no charging. But what is happening in this report, and I'll go on to it in detail, is that areas of our roads where buses have been a problem are being addressed. They've been addressed. And just to remind everybody that we all signed the climate change, we all signed the climate emergency in 2019, those that are councillors and as many here. Since then, we've had Reading, as well as Britain and the planet, has had two of the hottest summers ever. And we've just experienced the wettest autumn on record with flooding. And many climate scientists are saying, unless we change our behaviour, these are going to be the cooler summers. These are going to be the colder summers, the cooler summers, and the drier autumns and winters, because it is only going to get worse. We in Reading have made a commitment to get to net zero by 2030, and we know it's a challenge. And this part of this strategy, this part of this programme is only that linking in to assist and to enable and to enhance our buses, so people will see it is the better way to travel around Reading, as well as cycling. And those who need to drive, and there are drivers, it's not anti-drivers, will be able to drive with less congestion. I'll go on to, you know, what the actual proposals are. We received 26,263,000 from the Tory government, from Boris's Bus Back Better, because Johnson, in the days when the Tories actually, you know, pretended or believed actually in the green strategy, believed that Reading's bus service was excellent, and it's an outstanding bus service. 17 million journeys going up as we speak. And the idea was not to spend it on potholes, not to spend it on ULEZ, not to spend it on any other ideas that people may have and may bring in tonight. That's got to be done through council tax. But this 26 million is going to be spent enhancing buses, and through a lot of hard work through our offices over a lengthy period of time since October 2021. We've got ticketing, we've got new buses on stream, we've got Park and Ride coming on, we've got South MRT, we've got lots and lots of exciting projects, and it's great to see Robert in the audience from the bus company. He will wax lyrical of how buses are being improved to the extent where it will be the best place to get a bus in the country. Laughing over there, of course, it would be from the Green Party. We think it's funny. Through ticketing and through more bus lanes. We can't spend it on anything else. It's a Tory government money that we need to take. And if we don't agree this tonight, we then agree to give the money back. We can't go spending it on other things. So here's the project. It's an excellent, outstanding project. You know, it's the plans to create a faster, even more reliable bus network in Reading by introducing 6 new bus lanes and new sets of ticketing. The idea of these bus lanes haven't been plucked out of the sky. They're not, you know, slapdash, is to look at how we can tackle poor air quality, which blights East Reading included, some parts of Reading, and we get lectures, and they're right, totally correct, from councillors in all areas that the poor air quality is over and above the recommended levels. And the way to defeat poor air quality, to change and to produce better, is to enhance our public transport. That is the way to do it. And we're investing 26 million. Thank you from the national government into local bus services. I hope the Conservatives can remember that tonight. By the council, with attracting even more passengers to use them. The key to achieving that is to speed up journeys at particular points and increase reliability. We can go through the 6. I believe they're fundamental. The Oxford Road one, the outward bound Zinzan Street, George Street, we know that's a pinch point. The outward bound bus lane between Pangbourne Street and Norfolk, we know that's a pinch point. The outward bound bus lane from Circuit Lane to Granville Road, as my local area, we know that would enhance buses going out. Southampton Street, inward bound, from Pell Street to the Oracle roundabout is a pinch point for buses. And then we've got the Sidmouth Street to London Street on the A4. And then we've got Liverpool Road to Cemetery Junction, which we know is an issue. It's 17.5 million. So we're assisting people to use buses and increasing to 20 million by March. Now, we have to be honest with ourselves. We can't beat around the bush and hide that this isn't going to affect congestion in the short term. It will, particularly, I believe, in places like East Reading, where it will stack up. And you've had the councillors from East Reading have had questions back on that. You can see it yourself. You go out there, you see it. It will stack up outside of Reading, coming off the 329 and coming down Shepherd's Hill. And we're working with our colleagues in Wokingham who have been really helpful and really favourable and want to work together to ensure that we can have a seamless bus service from Woodley Early, Shepherd's Hill, coming down, coming in. We're working with them. Chris, we have meetings on a monthly, quarterly basis, 2 monthly basis. And the aim and the objective by the Wokingham Council is to ensure we can do that so it's seamless coming in. What we would ask people to do, and we need to give them early warning for these, we get early warning for some of these places. Some of them, I believe, will right themselves relatively quickly. Others, it will be a challenge. And we have to be honest about that and acknowledge that. What we would ask people to do is what we tried to do on the M4 is to come through to junction 11, not come off at 329 and go through East Reading. Shouldn't really do that. People do, drivers do, done it myself on several occasions, but to go along the motorway, stay out of the borough and come in that way. That would help. But also to ask residents in Woodley and Early and out of Reading, whose carbon footprint is higher in Woodley and the east of Reading, outside of Reading, than it is in Reading, is to think about getting the bus. Think about your journey. Do you need to make a vehicle? Do you need to make a journey? We know people need to drive their car. Totally appreciate that. Hence, we're not going down a route of charging people who will be driving and working and living and having leisure in Reading. We don't want to do that. We're not intending to do that. There's no question. But what we are going to do is we're going to make it easier for people to get the bus. And that's what this report says tonight, and it does it tonight. We're working with our colleagues. We're working with all the bus companies who were involved from the outset, working with officers of what was important for them. They know They know how to drive. They know the bus services. They know what's needed. If we don't do this, do we tonight, if we vote against this, you ask yourself the question, you will be voting for the status quo. We will be losing that money, and we will not be coming in February to our council, annual council, going, why don't we do a bit of council tax for money for transport? We haven't got it. This is our opportunity. We need to tackle congestion. If we don't tackle congestion, we will be stuck. I look amazingly negatively amazingly, walking down the Oxford Road. Sometimes there's traffic, there's roadworks, and they get stuck and you think there's roadworks. Often there's no roadworks. There's no roadworks in a lot of it, and there's congestion. And if we don't do anything about that, drivers will be stuck worse than they are now. So we have to make modal shift. This is a marvellous opportunity for us to do that. I appreciate and acknowledge and totally understand the concerns that many drivers do have, and I was on the radio this morning and I heard it, fears, concerns of being stuck and saying it will add to poor air quality. Ultimately, if we can get an 18% reduction in car journeys, particularly in East Reading, congestion will go down, poor air quality will reduce significantly, and we will have a better environment. And we will also get closer and closer to net zero, which we all agree to do. So I move this report. I thank the officers for their excellent work. I thank the bus companies for the work they're doing, and thank the public of Reading who have embraced our buses by large numbers and will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ennis. Councillor Hacker.
Thank you, Chair. I really do echo a lot of what Councillor John Ennis has just said. If you live in an area like I do, which is the Oxford Road, I'm in the triangle between Portman and Oxford Road, you go to clean your children's windowsills and they are thick with grime, and that grime is coming from the engines of cars in the main. So we do have to make radical decisions, and it is going to make us uncomfortable. We're not all going to be able to stick with the status quo that we're used to. We're going to have to make changes, and every single one of us will. I've just finished a very good book set in the near future where personal car travel is very, very low because they had to make those changes to avoid catastrophic climate change. And that's where we are. We're not at the, oh, we've got a bit of time to think about this. We have to do it now, and we should have done it 5 years ago. That's where we are. So I'm just going to speak briefly on the proposed changes to the Oxford Road. It's an area I know very well. I use it as a pedestrian, I use it as a car driver, and obviously I've caught buses in the area too, and I do welcome these changes. Anyone who has driven down Grovelands Road and tried to turn left onto the Oxford Road will know if there's a bus at the bus stop, you are stuck. And now that yellow box junction at the bottom of the road is live, you have to judge whether you stay where you are or you try and sneak round the corner and hope for the best. And this plan really does take that concern away. It moves the bus stop further along. It's no longer right on that corner, and it will make it easier for everybody to use that particular junction, including pedestrians. I do just have a couple of questions. I can see from here that there are upgrades to crossings and changes to crossings proposed. And I just wondered what kind of crossing was going to be going in close to Winslet Place. It says the existing refuge islands are to be removed and a proposed pedestrian crossing added. I'm just wondering what kind of crossing are we looking at? Are we just going to move the islands along? Are we going to do something else? Glad to see that the area on the entrance into the industrial estate, the shops area, has been upgraded too, because we need to encourage people to walk to these shops. It's very easy to jump in a car, but I quite often enjoy the stroll down to B&M and have a wander about. As long as I'm not buying compost, it's quite easy to do. And then I'm interested to see that the crossing into the garage is going to be upgraded. So if I could just have a little bit more detail around those two crossings. So the one at Winslet Place and just the one in front of the garage. I'm assuming from the diagram that the one to the post office remains, or there will be uproar. But otherwise, I think these are great plans, and unfortunately it will be awkward and uncomfortable for us, but it's absolutely necessary.
Thank you, Councillor Hacker. James?
Thanks, Councillor Hacker. In terms of the crossing at Winslet Place, I don't want to speak out of turn, so I'm not entirely sure what the improvements are. What I would suspect is that currently it's not in line with standards, as it's just a island in the middle of the road. So I would imagine that the intention is that that's brought up to standard for a island crossing. The improvements by the post office will be to replace the signals, improve the tactile across, but otherwise will be similar to as they are at the moment.
Just for clarity, there's an improvement across the way into the garage as well, which is on the corner. It just says existing uncontrolled crossing to be upgraded. I just wondered what upgrade is going to be there.
Is it okay if I come back to you after the meeting, if I review that and come back to you?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Next indication had was from Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Okay, I think the key question here is when we reallocate road space, it's always going to be divisive. And when we're talking about modal shift, it's always going to be a mixture of carrot and stick. And that's reflected, I suppose, in the responses to some of the proposals here tonight. But what I think is missing from this report are two questions. The first is, do you object to your house being flooded? Some people in Reading have had their houses flooded because of climate change very recently. Second question is, do you mind your children growing up on Ventolin? Because there's a lot of children in Reading that are growing up on those kind of drugs because of the allergies that they've picked up and the conditions that they have. That is not reflected in this report. And when we assess these proposals, we have to take on board some of the things that aren't mentioned in the report, as well as some of the things that are. Last year, over 200 days of last year were over 1.5 degrees rise in global temperatures. So, as Councillor Hacker rightly said, we're right up against the climate change agenda here. And this council took the decision back, as Councillor Ennis said, in 2019 to declare a climate change emergency. And we are making good progress on those. As a borough, I think the figures from 2009 are that we've reduced our carbon emissions by 56%, and as a borough council by 73%. But traffic is the main cause of air pollution. I forget the figure, it's either 17 or 27%, I can't remember what it is, but it's the main cause of air pollution, and this is what we have to deal with. So, as Councillor Ennis said, this is a one-off opportunity funded by our successful bid to government to encourage modal transfer and to reduce air pollution. Now, for the London Road Scheme, we are working very closely with Wokingham Borough to support better park and ride provision there and to provide a decent alternative into Reading for current car users. This will speed up buses and will add to the 733,000, I think 733,000 people in the last 6 months who've used day passes on Reading buses. There is an alternative to the proposals here, and that is that we could do nothing. But the reality is that private car ownership over the last 10 years has risen by 4%. And if you take vehicles as a whole, as one of my colleagues may well mention, they've added far more than that. The other thing to point out is that the types of vehicles that people are buying are also changing. In 2009, SUVs constituted 7% of the market. Now they're constituting, this is I think 2018, 21%, and that figure is growing. So if we do nothing, that is what we're faced with. We are faced with an increase of congestion. We're faced with rising air pollution. So what we have here is not about being popular. It is carrot and stick, but it's about reducing road capacity to allow better, more efficient transport choices. And so I think it's really important that we show leadership here. You know, there are some parties here I know who, when we were discussing cycle lanes coming in from Cemetery Junction, they stayed silent because they know that if you reduce road capacity, you're going to get some opposition. But yes, that was for a cycle lane. And yet here we're talking about doing something which is even better than that in many ways. We've got to be bigger than that, and we've got to facilitate that people make this transition. It's not an optional transition. It's one we all have to embrace, me included. I need to reduce my use of the car. So that's why, thank you. Yeah, I didn't need that really, but we all need to do that. And this is a real good opportunity, the only opportunity we're going to have in the next few years to spend the money in order to improve public transport and the way that we actually travel into and out of Reading. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Next person had indicated Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. I'm always happy to follow Councillor Smith. Thank you to officers for presenting this report. I'm especially pleased to see the table in item 3.9, which shows the consultation results without the motorcycle objections, which I think is very prescient given what has occurred, and to the table in item 3.16, which shows a very clear score and assessment table. Both those are very helpful, and thank you very much for those. And I'm pleased, therefore, with the experimental order to allow motorcycles to use proposed bus lanes. I think it's a good pragmatic decision, and I hope the data bears out that it is something that can be implemented on a permanent basis. I'm certain the residents of Tilehurst will appreciate the 2 proposed bus lanes in Oxford Road, which will help them get back home from town more swiftly. I'm also heartened to hear that Liberal Democrat-led Woking Borough Council are working hand in hand with Reading Borough Council for a seamless bus service across the 2 boroughs. As an asthma sufferer who does have to use venting occasionally, especially when air quality is poor, I appreciate the point from Councillor Hornsby-Smith. I do actually disagree with Councillor Ennis on one thing, though. Having visited a lot of the UK using public transport and suffered the consequences, I think Reading Bus is already the best bus service in the UK. And I will wholeheartedly support all the proposed changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. And I have an indication from Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. Green councillors support bus travel. We support expanding the number of bus lanes, and we support 5 out of the 6 bus lanes proposed. However, we have concerns about the London Road inbound bus lane. This is the one between Liverpool Road and Cemetery Junction. The council's own modelling shows that this will increase the traffic jam of cars coming into Reading in the morning rush hour by 176 cars, and in the evening rush hour by 107 cars. This is approximately a doubling of both of those traffic jams. This is why, on a scale of green being good, amber, red being bad, for traffic impact modelling, the council's transport planners have given this scheme a red for bad, negative impact. As an aside, we have been requesting the detailed modelling of the London Road scheme since approximately July, and we only got it yesterday, including a wonderful 300-page technical report, which clearly we had no chance of understanding in advance of the meeting. At a previous traffic committee, Councillor Ennis said I could hang him out to dry if we didn't receive full cooperation from the council. So I brought along a clothes peg for him. I'll give it to you afterwards, Councillor Ennis. We are concerned about the drop in air quality, which will result from the increase in queuing traffic on London Road between the borough boundary and the junction with Liverpool Road, which, yeah, the traffic situation is going to get worse there by about double. So I assume the air quality at that already problematic location is going to get worse, where traffic is queuing for longer. And I know that it's going to improve in other areas, but I'm just making the point that in that particular area, the air quality is going to get worse. We are concerned about the impact of cars reversing out of London Road properties and turning into London Road properties, which is an issue we've raised many times before, because cars shouldn't be doing that. But the reality is that most houses along there, they're quite big houses, have converted their front gardens to driveways. There's approximately 50 houses in the stretch, I would guess. All of them have 2-3 cars parked in the driveway, and this is mentioned in the report, but having these cars reversing in and out is going to cause. Sorry, Councillor Ennis, you're chatting away there. I don't know if you want to listen for a second. And yeah, please, I look forward to you coming back, and I hope you appreciate the challenge that I'm giving.
Thank you. Yep, stick to it.
And thank you, Chair, for intervening there. So yeah, we are concerned about the impact of cars manoeuvring in and out of these London Road properties, which they shouldn't be doing, but they will continue to do on a road with less capacity that's already bad and is going to be facing a reduction in capacity in that stretch. And if you think about a car reversing or turning right into a driveway, it's going to block up both lanes for a period of time where it's trying to maneuver across, and that is going to create problems. It's not been dealt with other than being mentioned in the report. We are concerned about the rat running, which will occur on roads mentioned in the technical report, like Palmer Park Avenue, for example. We're also concerned about a number of roads that aren't mentioned in the report, such as Liverpool Road and St Bartholomew's Road, which we think need to be added to the monitoring roads if this scheme does go ahead. Residents share these concerns with the with the initial consultation responses showing 64% of people objecting, and even with the motorbike objections being removed, it still shows a majority of people objecting. We, as well as acknowledging the concerns in the report, it would appear as though the council isn't even fully confident. They won't admit it in the meeting, I'm sure, but in response to one of my requests for information, the council is still waiting further modelling, which shows that even the council and even Councillor Ennis, who will come across as supremely confident, that there's still work to be done on this scheme, and we're about to agree it this evening. The report has some references to measures that will bring this congestion down, such as tap and pay, which I used this evening to come in. I'm a regular bus user, and tap and pay is very good. They all sound reasonable, but I don't think any of these measures is enough to reverse a doubling of the traffic jam coming into Reading in the morning. Excuse me while I blow my nose. Thank you. When we asked for a timescale on these congestion, traffic jam cutting measures, we were told over the course of the transport strategy, which runs up until 2040. I don't think residents in East Reading, I don't think their concerns will be allayed by a promise of an end to this traffic jam in 16 years. Green councillors think the London Road scheme between Liverpool Road and Cemetery Junction should be deferred. It should be put to the end of the programme. We're not saying drop it, we're saying defer it to the end of the programme so that more modelling can be done and more work can be done on mitigation measures. So we've got a clear plan about what the impact is going to be and what the council is going to do, rather than a hit and hope approach that appears to be being taken by Labour. If Labour councillors don't support this, we will vote against this scheme tonight. But as I previously said, we do support the other schemes. We want to see the other schemes go ahead, but we do think more work is needed on the London Road Cemetery Junction scheme. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor. Do you want to, Mr. Clements, you want to come back on that?
Thank you, Councillor White. I'm not entirely sure what elements of that you would like me to respond to personally. No? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I think the only thing I would contend on that is in terms to the modelling information. You're right, there is still some additional modelling that is being undertaken to identify the areas in which the displacement may occur so that we can better understand how we might mitigate against that. But the majority of the modelling has been provided. and we wouldn't expect there to be changes to the length of the queue that we've already said. I think the other piece of information that we shared with you today was that the result of that queue is that we would expect journeys to increase by approximately 2.5 minutes, which, depending on where those people are coming from, is not a significant increase to their journey time.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah. You want to come back at the end? Okay, fine. Thank you, Councillor Ennis. Next I have is Councillor Gitting.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, so there we have it. We've got a climate change model, a climate change but action, a chance to have modal shift with our public transport. The Green Party opposite are opposing it, and they're opposing it. It's in their own ward as well. So it's really quite an extraordinary state of affairs. And we've known that we were going to implement these measures. Actually, we had papers on this for a long time, actually, through this committee. Our indication to put in these bus lanes has been actually involved in public papers for some time. So I think Councillor White could probably have asked council officers before to get a briefing on this, and now he's using the excuse that the modelling isn't completed. I mean, I just think that it's an indication there of who's serious about climate change, and actually this party. I mean, an aeon ago, I was the lead councillor for the environment, and I'm very proud to say, actually, under my auspices, we set up. I didn't have the transport bit attached then, actually, but we set up the climate change partnership, and working with them, working with the university, working with business, other partners, we've set in place strategies that have led actually to Reading being recognised as one of the top 100 towns, I think actually in the world, or certainly in Europe, for action on climate change. And this firmly falls into that category. This is bold and decisive action. And we've got a very aspirational target for reducing the emissions in the borough to net zero by 2030. I have to say, not helped at all by the current Conservative government. So that is an aspirational target, but we're only going to reach somewhere near that if we take this type of bold action. And as Councillor Hornsey-Smith said, transport accounts for a big chunk of our emissions, and also a big chunk of the very, very poor air quality in your ward and certain parts across the town. And I'll tell you why that is. I mean, since 1990, I lived in the town, actually just before that I moved into Reading. Our road network hasn't really changed significantly, but what has changed actually has been additions to our bus service, making it actually, I think you're right, Councillor Moore, probably I think the best in the country. We put in bus lanes, and we put in other measures, and we've actually, we've had great work done at the station, working with Julie Ward to improve that. So we've got a great rail network as well. But the fact remains is that congestion in the town has remained high, and I'll tell you why that is that since 1990, the number of vehicles registered in the UK gone up from 20 million to now 41.4 million. It's doubled, over doubled, and the cars are 30% bigger. So the congestion is caused by people using private vehicles, not by HGVs. Those numbers have remained vastly the same. And actually in Reading, we probably had an increase in buses, but across the country, that hasn't been the case, because there have actually been some fairly bad cuts to bus services, particularly under the Tory government, who haven't really, I know they're given this money, haven't really incentivised bus use at all. So that's where the problem lies. So we have to cut the number of journeys made by private vehicles. That's a simple fact. That's not penalising motorists, but it's obviously trying to give them other options to get into town. And one of those other options, I mean, I'll come to my sort of rather central point in this, one's not been made. When I chair the Cycle Forum, I used to chair CAST, and Peter came with his lobbying for the motorcycle campaign, which was brilliant. He's, fantastic the work he's done with that. But one of the things that is being missed here is that these bus lanes, and when we put in the cycle lanes in the Shinfield Road, and aspirational now, of course, with the Bath Road, that scheme's coming on into place soon. That's through my ward. We obviously looked at other strategic routes into town. One of them being Southampton Street to put in some sort of arrangement for cyclists to use. Now, bus lanes aren't perfect for cyclists, but they're a better option than sitting in a choke-filled London road, behind the exhaust pipe of cars. Having the ability to cycle on the bus lane into town, and in other parts of town on the Oxford Road that Councillor Hack has mentioned, is a valuable for cyclists and people using electric bikes as well. And that's going to happen as we move forward, and doubtless actually probably in time when the government gets right together, perhaps even scooter use. I mean, that's a controversial thing at the moment, but then we need to find other ways of moving around town other than using the private car. And if people just took, perhaps out of 10 journeys they made, perhaps they made one by walking, cycling, or by using public transport, we'd cut congestion by 10%, which actually would help to address some of those congestion issues that Mr. Clements has raised in terms of some of the extra congestion that will come about. And also, what I would say about most traffic modelling, when these schemes are put in, yes, there might be a short term when there is congestion on all the routes where we're putting in the extra bus lanes. But then in time, the traffic moves, it diverts, it uses junction 11, it uses other methods of getting into town. So I fully support this. I think it's a good deal for cyclists, actually for other two-wheeled road users. But I really think, Councillor White, that you need to reconsider your position on this. I know you probably won't tonight, but I think in the long term you might reflect that is not a position that's tenable for a Green Party member.
Thank you, Councillor Keating. Councillor Singh, you indicated.
Thank you, Chair. I want to make 3 points on this, and we are in this chamber to represent people and residents of Reading, and clearly the consultation research shows majority of them are not in favor, and we can't call them they're anti-climate change because they've raised concerns on these issues. Clearly, if you look at Oxford Road, 56% objecting to this, London Road, 64% objecting to this, London Street, 69% of them objecting to this. Their concerns is twofold. One is congestion. It will cause, clearly, it will cause more traffic chaos, they believe. And for me personally, looking at the report, although it's a very detailed report, I'm not convinced it will make the bus services efficient. I really want you to hear this because if there is a data which shows me the bus services will improve by 20 minutes for me to come from Tilehurst to Reading Centre, then of course I'll be supporting this, and which is not the case. And if there's an air quality report which shows that it will improve air quality by 30% on Oxford Road, London Street, or London Road, then definitely I'll be supporting this. But that is not the case. The report does not tell me that. And secondly, the traffic modeling definitely needs to be relooked and checked. So that's really important. And I believe that a couple of times been mentioned about car users. As everyone is aware, yes, there's car users, but the car users are moving in the direction of electric cars. And we're seeing more and more that is improving. Although these funds can't be used for electric car charging, but that's the infrastructure we should be looking. If you really want to tackle issues related to climate change, look at the infrastructure for car chargers. I know it's a point separate from this and funding, but that's the area we should be focusing on. Solar panels. Is there a way we can provide to residents any kind of things? Again, this is not a point relevant to the report, but these are the things. So we need to look at a larger picture. If you're telling me no, we put a 1 mile bus lane on Oxford Road will tackle issues with the climate change, which is a global issues, I'm sorry, I'm not convinced tonight. Flooding, yeah, bus lanes, if we put bus lanes, the floodings will stop next year. I'm not convinced on that. Clearly, the other major issues with the report itself talk about is, which is 3.1, the bus services suffers delays as a result of traffic congestion, particularly at peak times. If we go ahead with the bus lanes, which is timed for peak times only, again, I will be supporting that because clearly, that's the time we should be using it. And in terms of making it easier, cheaper, quicker, and more reliable, a couple of bus lanes drawn across Reading, I don't think it's a step in a direction, but it's not going to resolve the bigger issue. again, I would like to see more data on this. I like to, before support this fully, and agree this should be deferred, and we should come back to this. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Cross, yeah, you indicated.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to respond to some of the points that have been made in the debate so far, particularly by the parties opposite. Councillor Singh mentioned that he did not understand how bus reliability and times would improve and what data would need to be provided to demonstrate that. Can I suggest that he looks at the existing bus lanes? We've discussed earlier on Kings Road, the traffic, it can be large with regards to vehicles, but there are bus lanes for which the buses can speed down, and you can see that quite clearly if buses are currently caught in traffic. Having lanes for them where they will not be encumbered by the excessive private motor vehicles will improve reliability, and that's what we've seen in all of the existing lanes. Unfortunately, we've seen no alternatives from some of the councillors opposite to our proposals. We've seen vote chasing, we've seen a lack of leadership, and we've seen naked populism. We've seen from the Conservative Party in the Uxbridge by-election, they sniffed the slightest chance to jump on a bandwagon with regards to this action that the mayor was taking on pollution, and that they completely threw out funding for cycling schemes. They cut the active travel funding, they opposed modal filters off of the back of that for naked electoral reasons. Future generations will not thank us for that short-term populism. But this administration, unlike other parties, unlike the so-called Greens, unlike the Tory party, is showing leadership. So I would like to endorse the proposals that Councillor Ennis has brought forward. It isn't sometimes easy to support controversial things, but we have to do better than simply looking at some of these controversies, some of the responses that have come in a consultation. It would be easy to say, oh, 51% of people in a self-selecting poll have opposed this. The harder thing, but the right thing to do, is to show leadership, and that is why I'm supporting these proposals.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. Councillor Ennis, did you want to do it? Oh, sorry, Page, I missed you. You're far end. Go ahead, Councillor Page.
Thank you, Chair. When I worked with officers on the original bid for the BSIP funding, we were very conscious that we were bidding to a limited kitty nationally, but one of the strongest factors in our favour, and that was reflected in one of the largest awards in the country, was our track record of delivery. Delivery in terms of a robust local transport, public transport company that we have the privilege of owning, and also a track record over many years of leadership. And Councillor Cross is absolutely right that we wouldn't be in the strong position we are today with one of the best bus companies in the country being able to provide the level of service, notwithstanding operating difficulties that we have discussed earlier. We wouldn't be in that position without leadership over the years, and it's inevitably been incremental with bus lanes. And it's all very well for Councillor Singh to make sneering, opportunistic comments, but I can assure him that if we had put petitions, electronic petitions on every bus along the Oxford Road, the number 17 and other services, saying, do you want to have a faster bus service, support these bus lanes, we would have far out swamped the number of objections. So, you know, I'm surprised, frankly, that we have had as much support as we've had, given the fact that the motoring lobby were mobilised it, and the petrol heads that Councillor Singh represents were mobilised to oppose it. And leadership also has to reflect on the wider strategy. And I won't repeat what Councillor Ennis and others have said about the need to achieve our net zero targets. Credit and there isn't much credit one can give to Boris Johnson, but credit to his enthusiasm for public transport. He learnt something whilst Mayor of London. He overruled many of his MPs and was keen to see a real promotion of public transport, and hence many authorities, over half the transport authorities in this country, received nothing from the BSIP. They went through a lot of work, they put in bids. We got a lion share for unitaries, and per head one of the highest in the country. We have also one of the highest proportions of bus lane per mile in our borough, anywhere in the country, and that underpins a good public transport network, and we're determined to build on it. So I thank Boris Johnson for having been able to push this and promote this. Incidentally, he also allowed us moving traffic enforcement, which is again is something that will benefit public transport as well. And let me just turn now briefly to Councillor White. He and I attended a meeting during that famous period of when I was trying to promote the East Reading Mass Rapid Transit scheme. He and I attended a meeting at Risk where we debated the pros and cons. He was very much opposed to the MRT, as we remember. And one of the things he wanted to see us pursuing was a bus lane along the London Road from the bridge along to Cemetery Junction. So much so, he volunteered that he would support a CPO on front gardens, the ones he referred to earlier, in order to assist that bus lane. Now, fast forward, having, along with the Tories in Wokingham, defeated the East Reading MRT. Remember, we supported it as a borough, but the Tories in Wokingham, aided and abetted by one or two other individuals, and assisted by Councillor White, defeated it at their end. At the time when we withdrew the planning application, I made it quite clear that the status quo was not an option because of the air quality issues in that area that Councillor Ennis and others have referred to. And this proposal tonight stems directly from the opposition to the East Reading MRT. There is no alternative if we're going to look to improve air quality along there. And it also links in with improvements on the Wokingham side. And to Councillor White, through you, I would say if those few extra motorists were to shift to public transport, the equivalent of 4 or 5 buses, the problems that he claims might exist on the Wokingham side will disappear. And that relates to the point that Councillor Hacker and others have made. We have got to make changes. We sometimes have to display leadership and face down people who, for whatever reasons, aren't looking at the bigger picture and the bigger public interest. And that's why it's essential that we should press forward with these proposals along the London Road, because the volume of public transport that uses that stretch is considerable, and the potential for growth is also considerable. The East Reading MRT would have delivered major improvements to public transport, but without rehearsing those arguments, we didn't get it. So this, unfortunately, is second best, and that's one of the reasons, Chair, we must press ahead with it. The final point I would make, I would agree with Councillor, he may be in future, Peter Seymour, about the need for a permanent order, and certainly the issue of consistency is well made. But Chair, I very much welcome the report this evening and urge colleagues to press ahead with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Page. Councillor Ennis.
Yeah, I'll try and be as succinct as possible. Just to go for the motorcycles, Peter, I believe correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's a question about consultation on the experimental issue, isn't it? That you know, if we did it now, it might be a question about reconsultation or consultation. But put it this way, going in the 12 months, we're confident and we're committed to ensuring that, you know, because most bus lanes are accessed by motorcycles, that that would take place. I think the commitment here is to make sure it works and to support motorcyclists to use them bus lanes. I hope that's okay, but I think we would stick still with the question of the experimental due to the question of the consultation. Because to be honest with you, motorcyclists really got involved in this consultation. If you put them in and take them out about our position, so there was a genuine feel from motorcyclists about using them. That's why, hence the change. Because again, and I apologise to you on Saturday on our telephone call, there's an oversight, you know, in some ways, and we're quick to acknowledge that and to make changes. I think it's good to acknowledge a bit of an oversight there because you say it yourself, but we're ready to make changes to support motorcyclists, and I hope you can feel there's a little bit of love there going forward for motorcyclists, you know, on that, and that's why they change a positive change. Thank you, Councillor Moore, for your support and your contributions, and please pass on best wishes to Wokingham Council because they are committed to ensuring that they want to do net zero and they want to lessen it, and therefore working together. You know, this business about modelling, we ain't going to know when Mrs. Miggins leaves her house at 3:15. I want the council to tell me how many cars are going to be on the road at 3:15 on Saturday afternoon. I want the modelling now. You can't do that. But what you can do is you can work together to ensure that roads, you know, drivers are still going to be able to drive, they're still going to be there, but buses are going to be enhanced and public transport. Public transport is the key to cleaner air, is the key to a cleaner environment. Fact. I want to come on to Councillor Green, Councillor White. I call him Councillor Green now. I think that's a bit of a misnomer, really. Councillor White. It's interesting that you talk about you couldn't get the figures and you can't, and then you pluck figures out of the sky. You say, oh, the figures haven't been, you haven't done yours. And yet I can tell you tonight there's going to be doubling. Where did you get that figure from? 127 vehicles will be, will be on there. The fact is, we know for a fact, and you as a Green Party should know this, because you are nominally, people vote for you as a radical alternative. The radical alternative that's going to make dramatic changes. Young people, I have one living in my house, thinks the Green Party is going to do all change. I say, I'm going to have to disappoint you, my old friend, because they're really two cheeks of the same backside as the Conservatives. You heard them together making the same points and the same referrals. Disappointing. But you're plucking figures out of the sky to try and get it opposed and get it deferred because you don't want to do it. You don't want to make change. You don't want to lose your seat. You don't want to stick your neck out for proper green policies. So I suggest you think about changing that name of the party. But I will go for fact on London Road reversing out. There's a park. I'm from West Reading, but I know East Reading quite well. There's a park, there's a church, and then the roads. And then there's a load of houses who will back onto the outward bound lane. The one lane. There was one lane going out of East Reading to under the bridge, and they will back out onto the outward. They won't be backing out onto the inward. They'll be backing out onto the outward. So they've got a problem now doing that. That has not made that any worse or any more difficult. There's one lane. Do you agree with that? Do you know your ward? There's one lane going out, isn't there? One lane going out, and they have to come out. Them houses have to come out onto that road. So the point about you talking about reversing, which was your major point, and plucking figures, it happens now. So if we did your deferral, it would still be the same. If we got rid of it, but all the others can go ahead, it would still be the same. So I think you're just chancing, really, the truth. And you talked about confidence. There is not a confidence as far as concerned. There's a commitment. There's a total commitment, because I'll be the first to acknowledge that there will be traffic backing up on that roundabout coming under the bridge. The one lane will travel through. It will travel through to Cemetery Junction to like, I mean, I'm not a traffic engineer, but you see it enough. It will travel through the lights coming into Liverpool Road, and the rat running, you've had the answers to the rat running. Who would come off Liverpool Road and go through and then get stuck only what, 10 yards, 10 meters? Not much on them lights. You ain't going to gain anything. And Rupert Street, you're not going to, because you have to come, I saw the answer. You have to come all the way back. You're going to take more time. So your reason about rat running, but what we will say, and I think it's important, is that officers will work with local ward councillors to ensure that, and you saw the questions, if there is any rat running, we need to deal with that as soon as possible and within the realms of the project. Because you're right, that people will attempt to rat run. They will. Drivers do. And we have to be aware of that. And if you look at the questions and answers, officers have been very clear about that could take place. But it's a monitoring and happening. And that's with it taking place. You can't defer something not to happen and then monitor it. We would appeal to those, and it will be sitting in traffic in the outside of the Reading area. We'll finish in a minute. Outside of the Reading area coming down. That will happen, and the 329. The sat-nav on the M4 will tell people not to go onto the 329, and that will reduce traffic coming in, which we need to do. So I don't think I've answered it. I hope I did, but I didn't. Can I just say a couple more points about Councillor Singh? See, if I was a Conservative Councillor Singh, that's 26 million this government has given this town. I often watch sitting here when the government gives money and the council claim it. We claim it. Oh, we've got some. If I was a Tory, I'd be going, oh, it's government money. Your government has given us 26 million pounds, right? Your government, you know, my word, they need as many friends as possible at the moment, but they've given us 26 million pounds to make buses better, and you're blasting it. Now, I want to know, is Councillor Robinson sitting there? Where's Councillor Goss? Have you kidnapped him? Have you kidnapped him? Have you hid him? Okay, fair enough. Because Councillor Goss diametrically opposes everything you said. I read an article by Councillor Goss. It was an excellent article talking about leaving the roads to those who need to drive. People who don't need to drive, these people need to drive. It's their trade, it's their industry, it's their livelihood. They need to drive. It's about the vehicle that they're driving we have discussions with. People do need to drive. You can't put a ladder on the bus. You can't put a toolbox on the bus. You have to have a van. You have to have a van. You have to drive. Leave the road to them. There's people that don't need to drive. They don't need to. It's convenient. It's easy. Have a bar of the bus. Get yourself on a bike. We can understand 18% reduction if you read it. 18% reduction in East Reading would clear them roads. 18, not 80. We're not stopping people from driving. 18%. That's what we're talking about. So, you know, you vote for the status quo, that's fine. And that's the way it goes. EV congestion, right? EV, if everyone drove on EV cars, would still be the same congestion. Norway have admitted they should have invested more in public transport. They've invested a lot in EV, good stuff. They're still stuck in traffic. Public transport clears congestion, fact. Difficult for some to understand that, but it does. It does. I think we'll finally finish by saying we got a lot of work to do. I hope we vote for the for this proposals. It's been excellently worked up. It's not a flim flam put together on a thing. It's been a lot of work. The people who know what matters for buses are the bus companies, and they've been involved with this. Not random individuals. Skilled engineers and the bus companies have been involved and know. They know, because you said, how do they know? They know more than anyone. And I think we need to continue to work with them. I think we want to, even if you don't vote against, and we can have political go, because we certainly will, Councillor White, Councillor McCann, you'll hear from us, but we still want to work. We still want to work with you, and we want to make it work. And therefore, by working with local councillors, ward councillors who have genuine concerns, which some of them, which you raised tonight, we need to work with. But we need to vote for this, and we need to stand firm and be honest with our residents, but say we need modal change. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ennis. Councillor White, I know you indicated you wanted to speak, but you already spoken, and I didn't see any more indications. So I'm going to vote forward towards the vote, yeah? So can we? Right. So I'm going to, gentlemen, councillors, can we keep an order, right? Yeah, I've heard enough debate across both, and Councillor Ennis as the final, as a lead member, as the final wrapped up said. So I'm going to move towards the vote. So I will ask who are favored in the recommendation described on page 159. And note the report and agree with it. All those in favor, can you please stick your hands up? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those who are against, 3 against. And abstain, anybody? No? All right, so it's been carried here. Thank you. And that concludes the order, please. Yeah, councillors. That concludes the first part of meeting, and the second part is private and confidential. I would ask all the member of public and the media to leave the building, please. Item